Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody, welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our NXT show for the week. Let's jump right into it. First match we have the Ascension versus, I don't know, two local talents. They never said their names and I didn't recognize either one of them. So we get a quick Ascension squash match, which, even if they were named talents, is pretty much par for the course with the Ascension. They show how impressive they are. They keep their tag titles like anyone would have guessed they did. They did a little bit of a playing around with the lesser opponents, which I think is probably how they're going to lose their titles eventually, is they'll take someone not serious enough. So I thought it was a good match. Again, another good showcase for a team that should already be on the WWE main roster. Now next up we had Tyler Breeze versus Mojo Rawley, which ended up, much like the first match, Tyler Breeze won in quick, decisive fashion, which I was very surprised by. I think Mojo's a guy that has a little bit of hype, no pun intended. He's someone that the fans could have got behind. To have Tyler Breeze win so decisively shows us how much faith that they have in Tyler, and I agree with him. I think Tyler's an awesome wrestler. I thought it was great. I thought it was great to show Tyler's talent like they did. Next up, we have Summer versus Charlotte, Summer Rae that is, versus Charlotte in a matchup of former BFFs. Good match, great women's division wrestling. The Divas division in NXT is by far better than what they show on the main roster shows. And these two put on a heck of a match. Summer Rae is a very talented wrestler, and so is Charlotte. I like that the announce team touched on the fact that they had a similar ring style, similar build, similar athletic background. Summer Rae comes from the Lingerie Football League, and Charlotte, I believe, was a gymnast in her past life before becoming a wrestler. So you get that mixed in. They put together a very competitive and a really good match. I honestly think it was the match of the night, in my opinion. Now, next up, we had the Vaudevillains, Simon Gotch and Aiden English versus Kalisto and his new tag team partner, Sin Cara. Kind of a clash in styles, the old school guys against the Lucha Libre guys. Kalisto and Sin Cara pick up the win. The match was good. I honestly think the Vaudevillains should have won, though, because to me, a team that's been a team for a while should beat out a first-time team that really you're not going to use going forward that much. And last but not least, the main event of the night, the world title match, NXT world title match, Adrian Neville versus Rusev. Got off to a good start. You got to see, again, another clash in styles, the high flyer versus the brawler. However, right as the business started to pick up, Tyler Breeze comes out, kicks Neville in the head, causes the disqualification win for Neville. I thought it was good how they did that. It kept you in mind that Breeze wants to get at Neville. It also keeps Rusev from taking a loss, which we know they're trying to protect him on the main roster. And it keeps Neville looking strong as champion because he didn't lose to Rusev. So a good way to end the show. 5 matches in all, 2 squashes, 3 pretty solid athletic affairs. My favorite match of the night, Summer versus Charlotte. In my opinion, I thought they did great together, and I think it's something I'd like to see more of, honestly. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our top 5 prospects for the week. Now, again, and I mention this every show, if you watch NXT, you know the spiel that's about to come up, or my NXT shows. You know the spiel that's about to come up. We only rank the top 5 people that haven't made the roster yet. So guys like Rusev and Sin Cara, while they were on the show, they don't get into our ratings. And you don't necessarily have to be on this week's show to be in the rankings. However, it does help a bit, as you'll see. Our number 5 guy, the current world champion, Adrian Neville. I think he's got all the talent in the world in the ring. He needs to work on his promos a little bit more. His accent is a little tough to understand at times, but I think once you see him in ring, he's a guy that could go, and I think he's someone that could be the next Kofi Kingston, could be the next John Morrison type guy, where you just got an athletic marvel out there in the ring. Next up, our number 4 guy, Sami Zayn. Much like Neville, a lot of athletic gifts. However, he cuts a better promo, and he has a better aura and it factor to him. I think, honestly, the guy that's probably going to go furthest out of anybody in NXT is going to be Sami Zayn, because the fans just gravitate to him. He hurts a little bit in my prospect ratings for not being on the show, and as you see, the 3 people ahead of him and the one behind him, all were on the show and all had very good showings for themselves. Number 3, the NXT Divas Champion, Charlotte. She continues to improve, and she continues to put on great matches. I think this just, to me, she's stepping out of the shadow of Ric Flair and making her own career and putting on wonderful wrestling matches with almost everybody she steps in the ring with. I think she has all the talent in the world, and she's a future WWE Divas Champion. No question about it. Number 2, I mentioned it when I was talking to their squash match. I am not sure why they're not already on Raw, but the Ascension. I think, to me, they're the perfect blend of the Legion of Doom and the Eliminators. I think they're athletically gifted, as the Eliminators were, and menacingly tough, like the Legion of Doom was. Their whole thing, their entrance, the aura about them, the way they come out and dominate, the whole package, to me, I think works so well, and I think that they should have been on the roster already, and they should be in WWE on the main roster any minute now. And number 1, the guy who, to me, every time you give him, here you go, here's an inch, he takes a mile and a half, and that's Tyler Breeze. You give him a little bit of the spotlight, and he steals the entire spotlight. He had a very convincing win, and over Mojo stuck his nose in the main event tonight, showed us again and again why Prince Pretty is more than just a pretty face. He's got the talent, he's got the looks, he cuts the promos. There is nothing about this guy that doesn't scream future superstar. I mean, he's just an amazing talent, and he's ready as anyone's ever going to be on that main roster and be there tearing everything up. I think we're going to see him as the next world champion probably at least 6 months or so from now before he gets on the roster. I would say we probably aren't going to see him on the main roster until WrestleMania season next year, but to me, he's the top prospect that if I were in charge, he'd be the guy I was calling up right now. But basically, that's my opinions on NXT and the prospects in there. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.